All right, the video you see on the screen takes us back to Tallahassee, Florida. Florida State University, the site of another mass shooting in the United States. And once again, we see people out there expressing their grief, embracing each other, and bringing flowers to the scene of violence to remember the victims. Today's mood, a somber contrast to the chaos of yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
Video of students running away from campus moments after a gunman opened fire and killed 2. 6 others rushed to the hospital, including the suspect. Police identified that suspect as 20-year-old Phoenix Eichner, an FSU student and the stepson of a sheriff's deputy of Tallahassee's home county. Authorities said the weapon he used in the shooting was his stepmother's former service weapon, which she now apparently owns as a personal handgun. Earlier today, CBS News' Gayle King spoke to a Florida State University student who was on campus yesterday during that shooting, who was also a survivor of the Parkland shooting back in 2018. In that case, 17 people died. Here's a little bit of that interview.
I would imagine, Stephanie, that you never thought that this could happen to you again.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought it would happen to me for the first time. And here we are, and unfortunately, this is America for you. These actually were the doors that I came out of yesterday. We had the music playing pretty loudly, so unfortunately, we didn't hear anything, which we were lucky that some of my students looked out of the glass doors and saw everybody running. And I didn't see that, so I'd asked them what was going on. And when they said that everyone ran, I came out from behind the desk, and I looked, and I saw crickets, and I saw belongings left behind. And unfortunately, due to my previous experience, I knew what that meant. And before I knew exactly what was going on, I just started to direct everybody into the back room to safety until I got further information. But I had a feeling that it was an active shooter situation before I even heard.
So from Gayle King's interview to reporters with our CBS partner in Detroit, who spoke to another student from FSU, another similar theme. He also survived the 2023 shooting at Michigan State University. Here's a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think this time it was less surprising, but I think the fear was a little more immediate this time around. I talked to other undergrads who survived school shootings. And, you know, I think you go to any major R1 university like this, you know, you're going to run into people who have been in that situation. It just happened, you know, to me, you know, in college both times.
Voices coming out of that violence. Let's bring in CBS News senior coordinating producer Anna Schecter, who's been following this story from the moment that we broke it yesterday on CBS News 24/7 at this very time. Anna, you're learning more today about the victims.
That's right. We have just learned the identity of 57-year-old Roberto Morales. He is one of the 2 people that were shot and killed by the suspect yesterday on campus. He worked for a company that provided catering services. His brother posted on social media that he was a husband and father to a daughter. He is obviously grieving, and the company that Morales worked for put out a statement that they are heartbroken. So I'm sure we're going to be hearing more. There is another person who passed away. We learned that yesterday. We still are waiting on any information about that individual. And the 6 who were injured have been improving, the hospital tells us. But we're still waiting on more information about all of them being released from the hospital. Now, that has not yet happened.
So sobering to see the police tape and now the flowers once again in our country. Anna,
Yeah.
The news of just where this gun came from caused you to dig a little bit deeper and look at Florida's gun laws. What did you learn?
Well, Florida has pretty loose gun laws, and we knew that before this morning. But interestingly, recently, Florida has tried to, there's been a push in the state to actually roll back a law that was enacted after the Parkland shooting that made it more difficult for young people to purchase firearms. That does not apply in this case because the suspect obtained the handgun that he used to shoot all the victims with from his stepmom, who he lived with. He was known as her son. She referred to him as her son, but she was his stepmom. She is his stepmother. She's a sheriff's deputy of 18 years. This was her department-issued firearm that was retired, and so she purchased it. So it was in her own personal possession. It belonged to her personally when she was issued a new handgun by the department. And so we are still trying to find out if he took it without her knowledge. Did she give it to him? Exactly what happened that led to him in his state, in his mental state, being able to take the gun, go to the university campus and carry out this act. We're also still looking at motive. We're still looking at kind of what led to this downward spiral that led to him actually carrying out the act. Reed?
Yeah, where was his mind to commit such violence as police have alleged? So, Anna, let's listen to part of an interview between our Major Garrett and the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, David Hogg. For our viewers who don't remember, Mr. Hogg survived the deadly 2018 Parkland, Florida high school shooting. Let's listen.
I'm thinking about my friends that are at FSU. A lot of the young people who worked with us in March for Our Lives that I had to text and say, hey, are you okay? And thankfully, the friends that I texted are okay. But there's a lot of students from Parkland at FSU. And what really bothers me here is that in Florida, we worked in a bipartisan manner to pass reforms after Parkland. We passed a red flag law that has been used over 19,000 times to disarm people that are risk themselves and others. And no law is perfect by any means, clearly. But we still have so much more work to do.
David led so many students to march in the weeks and months after that, and also led efforts where that legislation is concerned. You know, in the weeks after the 2018 Stoneman Douglas school shooting, to his point, Florida passed those wide-ranging gun control legislative items. But now there's a renewed push, we understand, Anna, to cut one of the restrictions that came out of that law. What can you tell us?
That's exactly right. In fact, it even passed in the House, the Florida State House, that would repeal the sort of regulations barring young people under the age of 21 from purchasing both handguns and long guns. That it did not pass in the Senate, but you have seen this momentum across the country, really, and specifically in the state of Florida, to repeal and pull back gun laws that had been enacted, particularly during the Biden administration and even in prior administrations, to try to create a safer environment on campuses across the country and just in other places where people gather. Reed?
Talking laws while those who grieve gather today, mindful of those lost and those who are still recovering in hospital. Anna Schecter, CBS News senior coordinating producer, we thank you for that information. Well, President Donald Trump offered condolences and spoke briefly about the shooting, but when asked if he would take a look at gun laws in light of the violence yesterday, here's what he had to say. He said his job is to protect the Second Amendment. Watch.
Look, I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment. I have been from the beginning. I protected it. And these things are terrible, but the gun doesn't do the shooting. The people do. It's, you know, a phrase that's used probably too often. I have an obligation to protect the Second Amendment. I ran on the Second Amendment, among many other things, and I will always protect the Second Amendment.
For more on all of our updated details and reporting on the Florida State University shooting, go to our website, cbsnews.com.